coastal areas, that's mix of precipitation, freezing rains, and a little bit of snow showing. You're looking at the traffic now, and you check out what's happening. Yeah, so you're looking at the 14, looking at the heaviest traffic. Working where you're going for it. Going to the Grenada area, you're looking at 51, north and southbound. So heavier traffic. And to below is 278 portions across town. And heavy traffic north and southbound 45 in the Columbus area. Starting with Clipboard 1225 and portions of 182, also Blue Jacket Road. And we check out what's happening. Excuse me, that's Blackjack Road. At Oxford right there. Look at that, 278, portions of University Avenue, and also portions of 30 see some heavier traffic, especially 30. That exchange with 30 and 7. That's a look at traffic. Now back to Tanya and Greg.
Folks who need food cannot go to the food pantry because it's closed.
And local police officers in Scotland for all she does. More of that stories ahead on WTVA 90s at 4.
When weather is breaking news. The WTVA 9 Severe Weather has the information you need to keep your family. This is a confirmed.
A senior defense official says the U.S. has very high confidence it is a Chinese high-altitude balloon and says it was flying over sensitive sites to collect information.
Now, your WTVA Severe Weather Authority forecast with meteorologist John DeLucic.
Very happy that we don't have any more ice storm warnings or weather advisories, but I am ready for the rain to go away.
So am I.
The rain is going away this evening, and by tomorrow this time you will say, wow, after the rain we saw on Thursday, Friday we had all beautiful.
And UP is invited to attend, and it's free. This is the first Valentine's Day party held in Haven Acres in several years.
The Tupelo Police Department is recognizing one officer for all she does. The police department congratulated Lieutenant Katarsha White as the Crime Stoppers of Northeast Mississippi's Law Enforcement Officer of the Year. It is Groundhog Day, believe it or not. Tupelo has its very own groundhog weather predictor. To find out what this one had to say about the future of winter, that's straight ahead on WTVA 9 News at 4.
Some law firms may.
WTVA 9 News at 10.
An Amazon driver is being hailed as a hero. This after springing into action to save a dog from a burning car. The driver was finishing deliveries in Merced, California when he saw the burning vehicle. According to Amazon, a distressed man was trying to open the door. The man was able to free his wife and return in hopes of saving the dog in the back seat. That's when the Amazon driver grabbed his emergency fire extinguisher from his delivery van. The driver managed to get the flames down enough to unlock the door, allowing the man to grab his dog and bring it to safety. An intense rescue in the middle of the bustling Las Vegas Strip. It started when a BMW slammed into the median and started smoking. The driver was unconscious behind the wheel. Then a fast-acting bystander and a responding officer were able to pull that man from the car just as it burst into flames. Take a look at this. There it is. The driver did go to the hospital and was treated.
Frightening images out of South Florida. A Ferrari was left dangling, you see right here behind me, in an elevator shaft after a car elevator at a dealership malfunctioned Tuesday. Fire and rescue had to cut power to the facility due to a fuel leak. After that was resolved, crews worked with the towing company to pull the car from the shaft. Needless to say, it was a massive job requiring multiple 50,000-pound winches and taking roughly 4 hours to complete. No word on whether anyone was inside the car all that time, but authorities say no one was hurt.
Traffic in Utah brought to a standstill, not by an accident, but by a prancing pack of elk running wild across the highway. Utah Department of Transportation officials said multiple traffic alerts about these animals and were able to successfully herd the herd to safety. Not before traffic was snarled by his wild state.
Well, it's that time of year again. Groundhog Day is upon us, and crowds gather in Gobbler's Knob, Pennsylvania this morning to celebrate the annual tradition of Punxsutawney Phil. Now, poking his head out and predicting if we will have more winter weeks ahead of us or an early spring. Phil saw his shadow and predicted 6 more weeks of winter.
And while the groundhog predicted 6 more weeks of winter, a groundhog here did not agree. Sheila Franklin of Tooele Buffalo Parking Zoo posted the video of their groundhog, Joel Young. Joel did not see his shadow, even though it was rainy and cold this morning. Spring is coming soon, so things to keep in mind. Local food pantry will be able to help more people after a huge donation. That store coming up on the 6th. But next at 5, local police department will soon be housed at a new building. We'll have that story coming up in a live report on WTVA 9 News at 5.
I'm attorney Corey B. Trump.
What comes next in our forecast in just a little bit?
They will miss about Montevious and the family. They plan to stay together and be strong during this difficult time.
First and foremost, we want to continue to stay together as a family and continue to pray. And continue to work with the police department, all investigators, everyone, the different agencies. We're going to continue to work with them and see if we get some final answers for this situation.
The family did set up a GoFundMe to help with funeral costs. You could find that link on the website, WCBI.com. A stop at a safety checkpoint ends with a ride to jail for one West Point man, while the Clay County Sheriff's Office and the Mississippi Bureau of Narcotics were conducting a checkpoint on Monday, deputies stopped 23-year-old Shantez Clay of West Point. Spike was called into the search of Clay's vehicle. Sheriff Eddie Scott says Spike alerted agents to the presence of drugs. A search reportedly turned up 8 grams of methamphetamine. Clay is charged with possession of a controlled substance. His bond was set at $5,000. Now, Sheriff Scott says the case is still under investigation. A shooting on Highway 45 leaves Knoxville County deputies asking for help to find the gunman. The gunfire happened near the septic tank shop back on December 1st. Investigators say someone inside a small boat started shooting at a red Dodge Charger. The shooting resulted in minor injuries. If you have any information,
example here is about Alameda. Both the private internal messaging around Alameda as well as the public one was that this was a company that was completely separate. It was walled off from the employees of FTX US, that they didn't have any special access or privilege to the exchange. And of course, what has come to light through reading, the SEC, CFTC, and DOJ indictments is that that was completely not the case.
Former FTX U.S. President Brett Harrison speaking exclusively with Bloomberg's Shonan Libasak. And here's a quick check of the latest business flash headlines. Apple shares fell in extended trading after first quarter revenue missed expectations. Revenue fell 5.5% to $117 billion, with iPhone and Mac sales dragged down by a broader tech slowdown and COVID-19 restrictions in China. It says services were a bright spot, and China showed marked improvement in December as COVID-0 was dismantled. Amazon shares dropped in extended trading after it projected lackluster revenue in the current quarter. Its cloud computing division is suffering as some big corporate customers reassess their tech spending. Alphabet also tumbling in late trade as fourth quarter sales fell short of expectations as an economic slowdown hit ad buying. CEO Sundar Pichai put AI front and center in his response, saying that the technology will soon be incorporated into its core search business. The market opens in Seoul and Tokyo are next. This is Bloomberg.
If you have any information about the shooting, call the Knoxville County Sheriff's Department or Golden Triangle Crime Stoppers. The death Memphis police officers on murder charges has put renewed pressure on the Biden administration to pass the stalled George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. The president and vice president are planning to meet with members of the Congressional Black Caucus to push and get the police reform legislation back on track. Nicole D'Antonio reports from Capitol Hill.
At the National Prayer Breakfast, President Biden referenced Tyree Nichols and his family.
Just like we do.
Wednesday in Memphis, Vice President Kamala Harris made an impassioned plea at Nichols' funeral for restarting negotiations on federal police reform. Congress started work on a bill after the death of George Floyd in police custody, but it's been stalled for a year and a half.
We demand that Congress pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. Joe Biden will sign it.
The legislation aimed to, among other things, limit unnecessary use of force, restrict the use of no-knock warrants and chokeholds, and limit qualified immunity, which shields officers from many potential civil lawsuits. That last measure met resistance from Senate Republicans.
The president and vice president are meeting this afternoon with the Congressional Black Caucus to figure out how to make progress on the bill. But with Republicans now controlling the House, the legislation faces a steep uphill climb.
We should have simple legislation that we can agree upon.
On the Senate floor earlier this week, Republican Tim Scott blamed Democrats for not making a deal on areas where there was common ground. Reforms that included de-escalation training and a duty to intervene, something Tyree Nichols' family is now calling for.
Have a duty to intervene, then the law of the land on the federal level, it could have made a difference. And Memphis, Tennessee.
With the Floyd bill stuck, President Biden signed an executive order on police reform for federal law enforcement last week, and more executive action may be on the table. But the White House concedes there is no substitute for federal legislation. Nicole D'Antonio, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
The parents of Tyree Nichols will attend President Biden's State of the Union address next week as a guest of the Congressional Black Caucus.
We have seen several days of rain showers, and that doesn't change as we make our way into our third.
stop using a common over-the-counter brand of eye drops. Advisory comes after 55 patients in 12 states were infected with a rare and potentially deadly strain of drug-resistant bacteria. The CDC, together with state and local health departments, said most of those patients had used eye drops. The majority of them, EsriCare Artificial Tears lubricant eye drops. The drops are manufactured in India and sold at Walmart and other major stores as a preservative-free dry eye treatment. The infection got into the bloodstream and have also resulted in permanent vision loss and hospitalization. The CDC says consumers should stop using EsriCare drops. Symptoms of an eye infection can include discharge, eye pain or discomfort, redness of the eye or eyelid, the feeling of something in the eye, as well as increased sensitivity to light or blurry vision. Patients with symptoms should get medical care, but for those who have used the product and have no signs of infection, the CDC is not recommending testing. Michael George, CBS News, New York.
Well, another legislative session, another year where many Medicaid expansion bills died on both the House and Senate floor. According to a report by Mississippi Today, neither committee chair from the House or Senate debated over the nearly 24 bills that will provide health care coverage for poor working Mississippians. The article states that State Health Officer Dr. Daniel Etney told late last year that 38 hospitals are in jeopardy of closing. He reported that a poll by Mississippi Today and Siena College suggests that 8% of Mississippians, including 70% of Republican voters, are in favor of Medicaid expansion, a bill that would expand Medicaid from 2 months to a year for mothers in postpartum still has life. Reports say the bill is expected to pass in the Senate and sent to the House for debate. Recent pickup problems have Columbus leaders looking at all options for garbage removal in the city. At a work session today, the city council got an idea of how much it might cost if they decided to get itself back into the trash pickup business. The mayor and council members heard a proposal from Ingram Equipment out of Alabama. Ingram sells garbage trucks and other related equipment to cities and waste management companies. The city has been options after complaints from residents and even council members themselves about the performance of the city's current contractor, Golden Triangle Waste Services. At its most recent meeting, the council will issue a request for proposals for rubbish pickup. Today's presentation is one more step in exploring all options.
It would give the city an idea of what it would cost if we were going to buy our own trucks and handle garbage pickup within the city employees, not outsource it.
Gaskin says it would take further research, but he believes it's going to take several months to a year to get the equipment, hire the staff, and get them trained to take on the job. After the Columbus City Council approves a contract for police radios, the local company says, hold the phone. The council recently approved a lease plan to a statewide contractor out of Jackson that would allow Columbus Police to operate on the MS Win statewide emergency network. When Columbus-based Teletech found out, they asked to meet with the council to make their pitch. Teletech has been the department's radio provider for several years. Mayor Keith Gaskin and the council have been trying to get the radios for police since it came to office, but money has been the biggest obstacle. The city was recently informed that it has around $155,000 in the state fund set aside for such equipment. Council members are going to proposal against the one they recently approved. It will be March before they get a final answer in the availability of the state money. On a gloomy day like this, you can find sunshine in a primarily quiet. The Lowndes County Public Library is one place where the community can come and explore financing for adults, movie night for teens, and reading programs for the kids. And on days like this, instead of staring out the windows and watching the rain, parents took advantage of the read along with Mother Goose. A sprinkle of music, games, and fun was also included.
Imagination is definitely part of every aspect of it. When you read in a book and you see the pictures, as I call it, you can imagine, kids imagine things different than what they see in the book.
And about a child, and I love Mother Goose.
You will learn more about the programs offered at the library. Click this story on WCBI.com. High school students in Itawamba County spent their day visiting companies across the region as part of a job shadowing project. It was all part of National Groundhog Job Shadow Day. High school juniors and seniors were able to shadow employees at businesses such as Jesco Construction. They were also able to take part in hands-on activities to get an idea of the skills required for career paths. Career coaches say the Job Shadow Day also gives the students opportunities to find out other qualities employers are seeking.
Well, one thing that I want the students, it's not just technical skills on the jobs where they think they have interest, because they may or may not go into that career, but I want them to see just general skills that every employer needs and every employee needs to be successful. I want them to hear that from the employers and the employees also.
Just hired at Itawamba County Schools. They organized the Job Shadow Day with the help of area businesses.
Prices at the pump have shot up and could go even higher. I'm Christian Benavides, and I'll tell you why.
Corey B. Trot.
Again, according to AAA, the national average for a gallon has jumped 30 cents in the past month.
A lot of it has to do with the weather. We had that terrible winter storm at the end of December.
Andrew Rose from AAA says the holiday storm forced many refineries to shut down, leading to a disruption in supply.
You had this weather oil refinery issue. It's gotten better, but it kind of set everything back. And that's why you had that pretty steady increase in prices.
Those prices are starting to stabilize, but could be going up again. That's because many refineries are about to shut down for annual maintenance, which will impact output, just as demand for gas is about to go up.
After the end of February, we start getting into spring driving season wrapping up.
When more drivers are on the road, higher gas prices usually follow, and some analysts predict they'll climb another 25 to 50 cents a gallon by March. Christian Benavides, CBS News, Pompano Beach, Florida.
A heavy round rain is stretching anywhere from Kosciuszko northeast towards West Point. We're continuing to watch this push east, and then I'll have the details on what's coming next.